Okay, welcome back. It's another episode of Butt Crack Cycles, and my name's Paul. This is my YouTube channel. If this is your first time tuning in here, pretty much everything I do on this channel is old Harleys, and today we're gonna go work on my Shovelhead. You might be able to hear it in the background, slowly getting rained on. Got a storm coming through. So I'm probably not doing much motorcycle riding today, and it's kind of screwed up some of my other jobs that I needed to do in mobile field service diesel mechanic land. So instead we're going to go mess with Shovelhead. The clutch is slipping on this bike, and I also have an oil leak under my primary housing. I think I know what it is. I'm not 100% sure, so let's walk into my little building and check that out and get started working. So before we get started pulling the primary off of this, I had just wanted to double check the torque on this back axle. If y'all caught my last episode about this bike, I had a fender that had gotten bent and jammed into the tire on the front there, and I had worn a groove into this rear tire. So I pulled the tire out, fixed the fender, and I had rode this bike. I torqued the axle to 55 foot-pounds, and I rode the bike, and I always like to re-torque an axle after riding it. It's just a quick double check. In fact, I do that on both of these bikes, just as, like, this is my iron head right over here. As sort of like regular preventative maintenance, I'll go through with the torque wrench because these old bikes rattle so much, and like maybe every 1,000 miles or so, and torque axles, torque the shock mounts, just make sure, you know, foot pegs and controls and such aren't rattling themselves loose. Brake calipers is another one. And something really weird's going on here. This might derail us for a second off of the primary. So let me put the camera on the tripod and show y'all what is up. You can see I've got a wrench and torque wrench laying there. I think this might actually be pretty serious, so let's find out. So obviously our axle's coming through right here. There's our axle nut. Torque wrench on the other side, and I'm going to turn the axle. You can hear the wrench clicking, but I'm not even trying to spin that. And I can move it. I can move the axle around like that and move it on the other side. But then when I try and hold it with the wrench, I'm spinning it on the other side and never actually getting to the point where I torque this. So I'm going to put this up on the lift, and we're going to pull this axle out. I do not like that at all. That looks like something that's going to try and kill me. Alright, so the rear axle's out, and there's just kind of this weird gap here. I don't think I've ever looked this close at this axle before. Most of them that I've seen have like sort of a step down. Hang on, I'll get one and show it to you. Or they're just completely solid, like this one. This is the rear axle out of a 96 Sportster. But watch this Shovelhead axle. So we're holding it right there. Ratchet on this side. Go tighten. What the French fry. I can screw this into this axle. It's like this axle has been cut and threaded, and this is a bolt put into there. It never actually gets tight. I'll take this off. I guess I am. Look. Yeah, now it's all whoppy jawed. That ain't no good. That was fixing to kill me. Yeah, so that's a rather unexpected development here in Shovelhead land. I'm a little bit shook up by that. That could have been really serious bad. Like, that could have killed me or hurt me. This thing torqued fine a week ago, and I've ridden it once, maybe twice since then. I guess sometime on one of those two test rides, it decided, nope, I'm done. So I'm glad I found this. I had actually started this bike up yesterday, the day before. I was going to go ride it and do one of my little moto vlogs I've been doing that come out every Wednesday now. And I cranked the bike up, I backed it out of the shop, then I realized that S&S Super E was puking gas out of the overflow from the carburetor bolt again, even though I just fixed that. So I rode it back into the shop and parked it and jumped on the iron head and shot the vlog on the iron head instead. And man, I'm pretty thankful for that piece of junk carburetor. That thing could have potentially saved my life. And I'm glad that I'm in that habit of anytime I put an axle in, go test ride it a few miles, come back and re-torque it. Yeah, that could have been bad. All right. Back to what we originally started this episode with, which is fixing this primary leak and putting a clutch in this bike. This will be a little obnoxious with the bike on the lift, since the bike jack is, I say on the lift, it's just one of the cheap Harbor Freight jacks. Anyways, the jack's right here in the way. And real fast here, while this is all still together, this is the leak in question. You can kind of see it. Almost positive it's coming from underneath that starter solenoid. And then it just kind of runs down the primary and runs this way. And, you can see where it, being wet with oil, collects all the road grime and dirt and crap. So this isn't a bad leak, but it's enough that I want to fix it, and I needed to do a clutch on this bike anyways, so might as well reseal everything while we're here. In an effort to not make so much of a mess, I'm going to try and suck some of this oil out of the primary housing. I don't know right off the top of my head what these torque to. But just taking them off, these don't really feel all that tight. So that probably wasn't helping our leak situation. That should be all of them. Try and catch as much of the oil inside the cover itself as I can here. We'll get to the clutch and everything else under here in just a minute. I want to start with the starter solenoid because I'm almost positive that's where our leak is. You can really see all that grime in right there. So I want to get this yanked out. So I'm gonna go disconnect the battery and we'll pull the solenoid out. So before I do that, I've got the battery cable unhooked, and we're gonna do that. I'm not the biggest technology guy, but this right here, the cell phone with the camera on it, man, that's a great way to remember where stuff goes. Get our wires unhooked, we'll go ahead and undo the solenoid, pull it out. Yeah, so you can just kind of gently pull the solenoid itself out like that. And then once the solenoid's off, we can come back. This is all still hooked up. We'll have to take that loose. So we'll come back and get that in just a second. Go put this on the bench. You can see right here, we've got our the rest of the solenoid linkage. I ended up turning the shaft and pushing it through the shift lever, and now I'm going to try and actually pull this back roll pin. I've never done this before, and literally freaking everything's in my way right now. The camera's in my way, the tripod's in my way, the bike lift is in my way, this strap holding, you can't see the strap, there's a strap holding the bike onto the bike lift is in my way. I might just turn the camera off and move it out of my way because it's the biggest thing in my way. But y'all get the idea. You got to get the roll pin out so you can pull this little retainer and the spring off, and then pull this pull the rest of the starter solenoid shaft out. Here we go. So I've already reached up here and run the clutch cable adjuster in, and we're gonna break that loose. The clutch ramp. Screw this out. Screw that back in just a hair so it stays put pretty good. I got looking at these pressure plate springs, and they're pretty pitted and crappy, so they just need to get replaced anyways. What I was going to do is take a piece of flat stock and lay it across here and drill a hole through the middle that was big enough for this to screw this down, and then press all that together and then take the nuts off. But seeing as how this is all going to have to come apart anyways in order to replace the pressure plate springs, whatever. Just going to slowly back each nut off a little at a time and just try and take this apart without as much of an explosion as possible, though I think this actually will be fine. Yeah, once you get it backed off, there's really not a lot of pressure on this. And like I said, we don't care about the springs because we're not reusing them. Now we can actually pull our clutches and steels out and see what we're looking like in here. Probably pretty hard to see on camera, but the inside of this drum looks okay. It doesn't really look too heat checked or anything, but it does have a bunch of gunk, like those friction discs have started to come apart. I went and laid this all on the bench, so we'll walk over there and take a peek at it and see what we got going on. Locally dokily, everything is on the bench here. I believe you can actually take one of these solenoids apart and rebuild them, so I might do that. I'm guessing our oil leak was probably more so from this O-ring here than it was from the little rubber guy, but I've already got both of these. I ordered both when I ordered my ports. I need to get this roll pin back out, and I need to go find that other roll pin. I dropped the small one, so we'll worry about that in a minute. Here's one of the pressure plate springs. Let me see if I can zoom this up a little for y'all. There you go. You can see it pretty good right there. Just how pitted that spring is. And that's about how the rest of them in there look. I only brought this one to the workbench just as an example, but those look pretty rough. So those are going in the trash. Moving on to the clutches and steels. These don't look awful. They do have quite a bit of oil on them though. And I kind of thought that there was too much oil in that primary housing when I drained it. I might look into maybe blocking off this chain oiler and running still a wet primary, but running it, you know, as a separate sealed system. I don't know. Those clutch discs to me really don't look that bad. They're nice and thick. They don't look like they're blued or anything like that. The steels in between the friction plates, I mean, there's a little bit of, you can see there's a little bit of wear on them, but really, you got a little wear ring right there. I don't know. It's not like these are smoked, which granted, this clutch didn't slip all the time. It only slipped at high RPM under like maximum throttle. So I don't know. I'm going to clean all this up and make a decision about replacing it or not. I was fully expecting to replace both the steels and the friction discs and the pressure plate springs, but maybe this stuff is okay. I'll clean it up and stew. So I got thinking about this. I was like, man, there's just so much oil in this primary. It's way more than I think should be in here. The chain oiler right here, that's your fitting for the chain oiler, the primary oiler, it's all still hooked up. I thought about maybe isolating this primary, but I wanted to sort of look over here behind the alternator drum. Kind of right under there, you can see where the oil's pooling up. So what I did earlier is I took just a set of needle nose pliers and a rag, and I just, kind of went like this, stuffed it in here and dried it all out until there was basically none left. And then I walked away for like 30 minutes, and there's slowly some oil come seeping back through there. So I would say that our crankshaft seal is leaking, which is not really fun. So I'm walking inside, and I'm gonna sit down on the computer and sort of make myself a price list, parts list, I guess, rather is a better way of saying it, and figure out how much is all gonna cost me. More than likely y'all will end up seeing this in like 2, maybe even 3 episodes. I'm almost positive there's a special tool to reseal one of the cranks on one of these. I'm not entirely sure, so to the shop manual we go. But I'll check back in later once I have all that figured out. Alright, so it is the next day, and as you can see, I'm wearing my silly little fake cowboy hat again because it's raining again, and I don't really like getting wet. I sat down yesterday, went inside and sat down on the computer, got my parts manual, my shop manual, figured out everything that I would need. I've never done this job before on a shovelhead, so y'all are getting to sort of learn along with me. And the parts really weren't as expensive as I thought they were going to be, and I actually found one of the sprocket seal tools. I found a Jim's tool on eBay that was used for like half of what a brand new one is. So I bought that, and I ordered my parts. Everything should be here a little bit later, another week or so. And so for today, we're gonna walk back out into my little shop and tear the rest of that primary down. I got screwed on. I was supposed to go pull an injection pump off of a 3208 in a little dump truck this morning, but this weather's really got me messed up. It's not raining near as bad now as it was like 2 hours ago, but this dump truck's like an hour and a half away from me, and the customer called me. He was like, dude, it's boring cats and dogs here, and it's a swamp where this truck's parked, so let's put it off for a few more days. And one last thought as I'm opening the door here to the building is I just wanted to really quick, this is an odd place probably for it in the episode, just to shout out and say thanks to everybody who watches this channel and subscribes, and all your support and everything on days like today, or even weeks like this week. I've been kind of slow with the diesel work. The motorcycle stuff is really what keeps me going, whether it's selling parts, just YouTube money. I don't make a lot on YouTube. It's really not very much at all, but it is something. And shirts and parts and such that I sell on my little web store, buttcrackcycles.com. So if you bought anything from me, thank you. If you even just never bought anything, you never plan to, I really don't care. Just you watching this channel actually helps sometimes pay some bills around this house, and means that I can keep working for myself instead of going to work for some big company. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I really do appreciate all of y'all, and I love when I get to meet people in person. Congregation is coming up here in Charlotte, so I know I'll see some of y'all there. Anyways, I just had to put that in there. Well, I got ahead of myself. I started working without filming, but you obviously got to pull your compensator off. This nut is, or this bolt rather. I'm gonna probably try and order another one of these. I don't know what the story is here. It looks like someone hit it with a chisel, maybe trying to get it off. This doesn't look the greatest, but I'm probably gonna keep it for now. I don't know. That comes out. This is 2-piece. Just keep track of where everything goes. I will add with this, I took this off with an impact, but I'd made myself a little wooden brace, and you can see I like thinned down the edges of it, and I stuffed it in between the sprockets here. I went ahead and let the chain tension off first, and then put my block in to stop the engine sprocket and the drive sprocket back here from turning, so that way it held everything tight, and then when I whacked it with the impact, it just come right off of there. So that's just how I did it. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. I'm gonna just pull all this together. This is the way I normally do this on like a Sportster. Ball bearings falling out over here. Nice. Yeah, sorry, I realized I never turned the light on. I need to get better lighting out here. Anyways, I'm gonna pull the stub shaft off. Mine felt like it was trying to come nice with the sprocket. I've heard those things can get really tight and really stuck, and sometimes you have to use like a bearing splitter to get them off of your main shaft there, coming out of your flywheels and your crankcase. But that one came right off, so that's a very nice feeling. Okay, so I rounded up all the little roller bearings that fell out of our clutch hub cage there, and now we need to pull the actual clutch hub off. Take this nut off that has this little O-ring seal in it. Not O-ring, it's just a seal, a little lip seal in it. This is reverse thread. It's left-handed thread, so you have to turn it to the right in order to loosen it. So I took that one off already. It's most of the way off. I'll take it the rest of the way by hand. And then I actually think I'm gonna have to put this back on, maybe just finger tight or a little bit, in order to use the clutch hub puller tool. I'm not quite sure yet. I gotta look at the tool and see how that works. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull the Bendix out of the starter. If I had known that I was going to be pulling this whole entire primary housing off, I could have left the sort of inner portion of that starter solenoid in there, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know we were going to be pulling everything off. But pull the Bendix out, and then we'll go around to the other side and take the starter loose. Let's start with pulling the seat. Take the strap for the battery box loose. There we go. There's one. And there's two. Those will be fun to put back in. Probably what I'll do is the old trick where you take your socket and your bolt and stuff a little piece of rag in there and jam your bolt down in there so it don't move. But that's the starter took loose. The next thing I'm going to do is, as I've been reading the shop manual, and I'll stop and read web forums and watch other YouTube videos and such if I've never done a job before. Somebody suggested double checking the tightness on your transmission mounting bolts, just in case like those have come loose or maybe they're missing, and basically the only thing holding the transmission into the primary is the primary itself. Where'd I put my dang flashlight? Yeah, there we go. Just a little snug up on all of them. They all seem pretty tight. So, we're good to go on that. So looking at this tool, looks like you need to actually do have the nut off. The tool's got a little hole in it on the end of the swivel that fits over the clutch push rod. And then, yep, just do it like that. And we're going to take our nuts that were holding our pressure plate and clutch assembly all together. We're going to screw those on. I'm going to go grab a ruler. Oh, you know what? I've got a ruler right here. I'm just going to measure from the back of the tool to right there. Basically, my idea here is that I want to try and get this as even as possible. Nice. Alright, so I pulled the forward controls off over here so we can get to these bolts. I haven't seen it called out anywhere in the factory shop manual about doing this, but I was watching a YouTube video of somebody else taking one of these apart. He mentioned pulling these front two off first so that when you pull... Oh, that's tight. That feels like it was probably over torqued. Anyways, he was basically saying, he's like, yeah, do the front ones, because the ears right here, this cast aluminum inner primary housing, he's like, that way you don't leave the torque and the stress on those two bolts, and maybe you'll crack those ears if those are the last two that are tight. I don't know if there's any truth to it. I don't think it can hurt to do it that way, so I'm going to do it that way. At least one person seems to think it matters. Write a comment below if you think I'm wasting my time with this, or did I do something right. Also, you will notice under here, get the light in there a little bit more, that there's no safety wire right here or over here. None of these, the nuts here don't have the holes for it. I'm gonna get all this apart and figure out what's going on. Do I need to order new nuts, bolts, fasteners, whatever, so that we can actually safety wire this stuff up like the way it's supposed to be. I'm gonna try and just kind of gently persuade this off with the pry bar here between the transmission and the cover. Seems like a pretty centered place. Oh boy, what was that? Ah. The little woodruff key off our transmission shaft just came off. There we go. What was that? Okay, just a washer. No big deal. Nice. So now we'll get our oil hoses loose, and we'll be ready to go. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Sweet. Primary housing's off, baby. Up next, I'm gonna pull the alternator rotor. I hope that comes through well enough on camera. There you go. That looks pretty good. See it right there? Hey, look. My finger's wet. Let me take the camera off the tripod, see if I can get this a little closer for y'all. There you go. That's a much better angle. You can see that seal is leaking oil. So that's definitely worth taking all this apart for. We'll pull that out and put this back together. You can actually see right there in the bottom of the alternator drum, the stator drum, there's a pool of oil down there too, right there. Right, so you can see here, this is pretty grungy. This has been making a mess for quite a while, all along the frame and everything there. It's nasty. I'm going to spend some time with this off and just go through stuff that needs attention. That, you know, now is the best time to do it. Hell, all this stuff's off anyway. Stuff like my sprocket here on the transmission. Let me see if I can zoom in on that. You see the teeth on that? They're kind of starting to get pretty sharp, and it might not come through well on camera, but they're sort of starting to roll over that way a little bit. I don't really like the look of that. That might get replaced. Y'all, if y'all have been watching this channel for a while, you know I've had all kinds of shifting problems with this bike. Basically, since day one, this thing has shifted terribly. It's got a set of homemade forward controls, and there's a lot of slop in the linkage. There seems to be a pretty good amount of play. This roll pin through right here doesn't have a cotter key through the other side, so it was like basically about to fall out at any given point in time. I guess probably the back of the primary housing was the only thing holding that in. And this shifter cover, the plate here, if I can get my dang solenoid wiring out of the way for y'all, that has a lot of both back and forth play and also in and out play. So I might start digging into this. I'm gonna go outside where there's some better lighting and stand in front of the tripod and the camera, and we're just gonna kind of discuss where we're at with this project. Okay, so we are gonna wrap this episode up out here sitting in the woods behind the shop where we got a little bit better lighting. We've got a lot to work on this bike. Y'all are gonna get to see a lot of content. There's gonna be a lot of videos on this motorcycle here lately. Josh over at Shade Tree Surgeon he once said, you know, if you want to start a YouTube channel, buy an old Harley, because the content just makes itself. And he's right. That you own one of these old bikes, you're going to be working on a lot, and you're going to be making a lot of videos. So we've got plenty of videos to make. I think what I'm going to end up doing here is isolating that primary. I think it makes sense to do now that it's all the way taken apart. I'm really glad I went ahead and pulled that primary down and found that oil leak. It all makes sense now. I think my clutch was probably slipping because there was way too much oil inside that primary, and I think the solenoid was leaking because there's way too much oil inside that primary. You know, that factory primary oiling and scavenge system is not designed to cope with that much oil, and having that leak on that main shaft seal is like a double-edged sword. Not only are you putting in way more oil into the primary than you should, you've also created a leak in that sort of breather circuit because of that. You've just messed the whole system up. So I'm glad I found that. I think it will probably solve my clutch issues too. I'm probably just gonna clean the clutch up. I've got a bunch of parts already here sitting on the shelf. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time figuring out what else I want to look at while all of this is apart. Now is a great time to fix some of that stuff, like that shifter plate or maybe that sprocket or anything else that I find in there. And yeah, this ends up coming, I guess, at a good time. It's almost October. My sort of main gig, as a lot of y'all know, is working on semi-trucks and heavy equipment, and that world generally slows down a lot in the fall and the winter months, which means I'm going to be a little bit slow, which is both bad and good. Obviously, I'm not out there making money billing out those customers, but it gives me the time to work on my own bikes, so y'all have lots of videos to watch. And you know, I'm closing in on 8,000 subscribers right now. I had the best month of monetization yet on my YouTube channel last month, so I would expect to see lots of videos about this bike. It'll probably be 4 or 5 videos before this is all back together and the bike is running and rideable again. So if y'all like watching stuff like this, shovelhead content, the nitty gritty, turning wrenches, tearing it apart, figuring out what's wrong, you got a whole lot more to watch coming soon. That's it. We'll end this episode here. I know this is going to be a long one. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for being here on the channel. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. Bye.